you start, so that you're not interrupted, because there might be some cameras and some microphones that come on, and we'll just give it 1 second and then I think you can get started. All right.
Okay.
So just a reminder, any members of the public, to keep your cameras and your microphones off until asked to participate from our Deputy Mayor. And I think you're good to go.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome and good evening, everyone, members of council, staff, and those that are joining us remotely. Welcome. I would mention that Mayor LaRue is away on vacation and will not be with us this evening. And we have Councillor Jill Sanama, who is a little ways away from us, but she is trying to Zoom in. So the first thing I would ask council if we could stand and have a moment of silence for the people of Ukraine before we get into our commitment. So I will stand because I can, so just 1 moment. Thank you. Thank you, council. So I will call our meeting to order. And our first order of business is our council commitment. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may they all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all, and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you, everyone. So as we move into our agenda, our first order of business is approval of the agenda. So I would look for a mover of the agenda, moved by Councillor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Clue. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. With declaration of pecuniary interest, either now or at the time the subject comes forward. And our next is our proclamation. And I will read. This is the campaign that the county has going on about It Starts campaign. Whereas inclusion, acceptance, and equity are important approaches to the diversity of residents living in any community, especially in our growing and changing region. And whereas March 21st is recognized as International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And whereas the Simcoe County Local Immigration Partnership is a community partnership focused on the development of settlement strategies for newcomers. These strategies bring together and support service delivery to newcomers in Simcoe County while promoting positive relationships, opportunity, and use of local resources effectively. And whereas this month presents an opportunity to further the resolve as we pause to celebrate the diversity of the human race rather than allow our dissimilarities to become a reason for racial separation. And whereas we encourage all to celebrate the differences in each other, such as race, culture, color, national origin, gender, age, disability, and region. And whereas during this period, we'll be hosting an awareness campaign and encouraging residents to take a stand and support It Starts to share their commitment to embracing acceptance, anti-racism, and diversity. I, Deputy Mayor Anita Dubo, on behalf of the Town of Penetanguishene Council, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as It Starts Month in the Town of Penetanguishene. Thank you, everyone. And I would mention that our library does have a display, so I would encourage everyone to check out the library. Very good. We will go now to number 7, which is a public meeting. And this public meeting is for short-term rental licensing. This is not a public meeting under the Planning Act. It is here to hear further discussion from the public, which will be noted. And I noticed that our planner, Owen Taylor, is here to give us a short rundown of where we are to date. So Owen, I will send things over to you.
Thank you and good evening, members of council, staff, and members of the public. So as our deputy mayor just said, this is a session for information and an opportunity for members of the public and council to ask questions and provide comments on options for licensing short-term rentals. So I'm going to provide a brief presentation and then we will jump right into a question and answer period / comment period. So my name's Owen Taylor and I'm the planner with the town of Penetanguishene. As I said before, the purpose of this meeting is to provide the public with an opportunity to provide comments on the options for short-term rentals, as well as the licensing component. First and foremost, what is a short-term rental? The term short-term rental is relatively new and includes other labels such as an Airbnb or short-term accommodation. Many people may know the popular sites such as Airbnb and VRBO. A new zoning bylaw is being prepared, which is proposing a definition of short-term rentals. And I'll read that now. A dwelling or dwelling unit that in whole or part is rented or available for rent with the intention of financial compensation for an occupancy period of not more than 28 consecutive days, but shall not include a bed and breakfast establishment, hotel, motel, or any other use otherwise defined by this bylaw. A little bit of background information in why we are conducting public consultation on this matter. So short-term rental units have been a topic for many municipalities across Ontario, with several examining the land use permissions and options for regulation, the primary option being a licensing bylaw. A quick internet search for short-term rentals in Penetanguishene identified a total of 78 short-term rentals in the area. And this search was through Airbnb and VRBO. In December 2021, staff were directed to obtain community feedback with respect to a possible licensing bylaw through a variety of mechanisms, including a survey and public meeting. The public meeting is obviously tonight. We had our open house sessions a couple weeks ago in February. And we do have an online survey available on our Connect Penetanguishene website that I'll get to a little bit later in the presentation. What is the town's role in short-term rentals? The town does not currently regulate short-term rentals, and we don't have a definition in our zoning bylaw. The only provision that we have to deal with short-term rentals is through bylaw complaints for our existing bylaws, such as the noise bylaw, clean yards bylaw, among others. Through the new zoning bylaw that's currently being prepared, that will include regulations for where short-term rentals may be permitted in town and includes the broader land use permissions for that use. A licensing bylaw is where these short-term rentals are permitted to be. They will regulate things that are a little bit more specific and detailed in nature, such as licensing fees, inspections, occupancy, and other matters. And then the other component is bylaw enforcement. So it's the role of the bylaw enforcement officer to enforce these rules and regulations and ensure compliance with zoning and licensing and the other bylaws in town. Where are short-term rentals permitted? The recommendation from the project team as of the last draft of our zoning bylaw that was released to the public on February 23rd at the public meeting was to permit short-term rentals in the downtown and waterfront zone. And I'd just like everyone to be aware that this is still in discussion and there's no decision that's been made with respect to licensing or the location where such uses may be permitted. And the project team is still evaluating where these uses will be permitted through the zoning bylaw within the next draft of the zoning bylaw that is to be released at the April committee of the whole meeting. It's important to note that short-term rentals may also be permitted in other zones throughout the town. So outside of the downtown and waterfront zones, subject to council approval through a zoning bylaw amendment application. We've included a map on your screen here. So the pink area represents the downtown and waterfront zone where short-term rentals are proposed to be permitted. And once again, this is still in draft format and is subject to change based on public feedback received through the open house session, the public meeting, as well as our public consultation on Connect Penetanguishene. If you operate a legal use, short-term rental use in an area that is no longer permitted under the new zoning bylaw, you may continue to operate under the provision of a non-conforming use. So in other words, if you are operating a legal use today on the property and it becomes no longer legal in the new zoning bylaw, you are grandfathered in. However, it's important to note that legal non-conforming uses are still required to obtain a license from the town should the town decide to follow through with a licensing bylaw. The town is continuing to explore options to identify existing short-term rentals and ensure they'll remain as a legal non-conforming use if they were in fact legal prior to the new zoning bylaw being implemented. What exactly is a licensing bylaw? A licensing bylaw is a bylaw established to regulate businesses and ensure compliance with land use building regulations. Under the Municipal Act, municipalities can enact a licensing bylaw to regulate short-term rentals. Specifically, Section 10 of the Municipal Act authorizes the town to implement business licensing, and Section 151 details provisions that enable the town to prohibit a license or refuse or revoke a license as well. Why implement a licensing bylaw? The benefits to the town include knowing the location of all legal operations in the town, requiring the online platform such as Airbnb to obtain a license in order to advertise. It allows staff to revoke or refuse a license where there's contraventions to the bylaw or non-compliance issues. And it also creates a renter's code of conduct to clearly identify the expectations of the renter, the property owner, and the neighborhood regarding short-term rental operations. On the bylaw enforcement side, staff of the bylaw department have been addressing complaints that stem from STRs, such as noise, garbage, parking, and fires. In 2021, the bylaw department received 26 calls, with some properties being reoccurring offenders. The bylaw department would oversee license issuance, and an application may include an inspection from the bylaw department, fire department, and building departments. Some examples of topics that licensing bylaws may regulate. And once again, these are only examples, just to kind of give a rough idea of the difference between what a zoning bylaw may regulate and what a licensing bylaw will regulate. So a licensing bylaw may regulate the number of guests, parking spaces, and rooms. It may include a renter's code of conduct. It may require that the applicant submit a site plan, floor plans, and obtain an electrical safety authority certificate, proof of insurance, license refusal and expiry. It may include a demerit point system along with fees and fines for non-compliance issues. It would require compliance with other bylaws in the town. Most include a requirement for a responsible person, so that's a contact if there is a non-compliance. And many also include regulations for what is referred to as commercial activities, so weddings, parties, or music events that may be occurring at these short-term rental operations. In terms of next steps, we are here at the March 9th public meeting. This will work in conjunction with the zoning bylaw. So our last draft of the zoning bylaw was February 23rd. There will be revisions, and the next draft will be presented at the April 13th Committee of the Whole meeting, where we will be proposing the location of short-term rentals along with those provisions and any revisions that are a result of our public consultation to date. Should staff receive direction to prepare a draft licensing bylaw, that would be presented at the April 13th Committee of the Whole meeting in time for final approval in May of 2022, in conjunction again with our zoning bylaw. The best way to stay informed on this topic is to visit our website. That's connectpenetangwisheen.ca/short-term rentals. Our online survey will be available until the end of March. You can also contact the Planning and Community Development Department. You can contact myself directly, and my contact information is there on the screen. You can also, if you contact by email, we can add you to our mailing list where we'll circulate updates on the potential short-term rental bylaw and information on that. Once again, I would just like to reiterate that this is a public consultation session, and there's been no decision as of yet. This is to gain feedback from the public and for people to ask questions and provide comments so we can make an informed decision on this topic. With that, I'll open the floor to any questions or comments, and maybe I'll hand it back to you, Madam Chair, to coordinate the question and comment session from the public.
Thank you very much, Owen, for that. And I will look to Sarah. I think she's the one that is organizing, letting people in if they wish to ask a question. Yes, I see a hand up. Rita Jean.
Yes, Rita Bishop.
Yes, Rita Bishop, go ahead.
I've just received a notification from Airbnb that as of July 1st, I'm supposed to secure a GST number. And I know with GST, there's usually a threshold of a certain amount of income before that, but I'm wondering if others have received the same request from Airbnb. And how that would play if it has to be implemented by July 1st, and your timeline's a little off on that, but as far as securing it, that's if we're moving forward with getting a license.
Thank you for the question, Rita. Owen, do you have any information that you could share?
Certainly, we'll keep members of the public updated as we move through this process. In terms of if you operate a legal use of an Airbnb on the property now and how that'll translate into potentially obtaining a license down the road. That's something that the project team will take back, and will hopefully be providing more information, or we will be providing more information rather, in a subsequent report in terms of timing of licensing and grandfathering in other words, of these existing Airbnbs.
Thank you, Owen. I would just mention, if someone else has a question, would they please turn their camera on so we could see them? Yes, Wendy?
Hi there. My name is Wendy Dobrevich. We have a property on Champlain Road, and we have 3 Airbnbs within 400 meters of our property. And one of our concerns is capacity. Last year, the Airbnb right next to us had over 30 people up there during a time when there was a restriction of only having 25 people inside. So that's one of our biggest concerns, is capacity limits.
Thank you for the question. I do believe we are looking at that, but I will ask Owen to respond.
Thanks, Wendy. So in the current draft of our new zoning bylaw, the occupancy is limited to 8 people with 4 bedrooms. So any new Airbnbs or short-term rentals would need to comply with that. In terms of existing Airbnbs, a future licensing bylaw would be able to regulate something like that. And that's something that the project team will take back, and will be able to have a solution to implement provisions for limiting occupancy to what's noted under the building code and other means.
Okay, thank you. We have another question, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
We're just wondering if there's been any study on environmental impact with these Airbnbs. There was another Airbnb on Champlain Road, which went up in flames in January. So we're just wondering if the town has looked at anything like that.
Thank you. Owen, do you?
Once again, the project team can certainly take that back, and I'm maybe not 100% sure what you mean by the environmental impacts. If it's in regards to septic systems, that would be a requirement through the licensing bylaw. If Airbnbs were permitted where they may be operating on a septic system, that's something that would be addressed through a potential licensing bylaw.
Well, can I just add when you talk about environmental assessment, do you not, when you have like someone having 7 cars parked beside the cottage that we have, like what about air pollution, garbage disposal, traffic? Have you done any studies on that?
Thank you for your question.
Because the environment seems to be a big concern these days, and yet you're allowing some cottage that has maybe 3 bedrooms to have 25 people in it, and they're having 7 cars coming up and creating more pollution. And what about disposal of garbage from all these people? Stuff like that. Minor things that maybe affect the environment, because we often consider all this where we dispose of our waste and all that. I see all those signs, it damages our water system, not here. So have you ever done an assessment on how that's going to affect the amount of garbage?
Well, we'll certainly take your concerns. We'll certainly take your concerns forward. I don't believe we've actually done an environmental assessment, but we would hope to control some of that through the licensing bylaw. Did you have anything else to add, Owen?
No, I think that response is exactly what I was thinking. That's something that we would take back, and certainly we would implement any sort of environmental provisions in the licensing bylaw that we could, such as, for example, regulating parking and matters like that.
Very good. Thank you. I see that there are other hands up, so I will go to Jackie. If you could turn your camera on for us, please.
I'm getting a message that I can't start my video because the host has stopped it. So sorry
Okay.
about that. So Jackie and Steve Hessler, we're on Cambridge Road, Cambridge Street, and we have an Airbnb on Cambridge Street. We weren't actually aware of any problems with STRs until we became aware of this being debated through the council. So we're interested to join in. We haven't had any problems with ours, but I'm not worried about it for us, but I'm just wondering if Owen could explain the reasoning behind the downtown and waterfront zone for restricting Airbnbs to that area, because that doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Owen.
In terms of regulating the actual land use of short-term rentals, that's something that falls under the process of our zoning bylaw review. So we had our public meeting on February 23rd, in which we presented the new revised draft of the zoning bylaw that proposed to allow short-term rentals within the waterfront and downtown zone. The primary reason being that the town doesn't have a septic inspection program, reinspection program, for properties that are within the rural areas that operate on a septic system. So these septic systems could get overwhelmed through the use, the more frequent use through Airbnbs that may have a lot of occupants. The other reason is to maintain the housing supply within our main residential areas. So in our new zoning bylaw, we will be permitting detached residential units, or we are proposing to permit detached residential units. So these are separate units that are detached from the primary dwelling unit. So in order to conserve our residential housing supply, we made the decision to propose to only permit these within the downtown and waterfront areas, such as apartment dwelling units or upstairs apartments.
So do you mean because of the shortage of available housing? Is that what that's trying to address?
Could you
Yes, it's to
repeat this?
keep our existing housing stock available.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions? I don't see any, but I'm only looking at one screen, so perhaps Stacy or Sarah could help me.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm not seeing any other hands up or cameras on other than Jackie and Steve right now. But I do see in the chat, and I'm not sure that it's something necessarily that Owen could speak to, but there is something in the comment in the chat from Carol wondering what penalties are in place for the current bylaws that were violated by the 3 short-term rentals that instigated all of this. Again, not sure that's something that Owen can speak to, but that is only other comment in the chat.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Owen, did you want to comment to that question?
In terms of the penalties that are in place, I can't comment on that. In terms of why we are bringing this matter forward for consideration and evaluating the options, it was a referral item that was brought forward by council for staff to provide more information and do some public consultation. So that's the reason why we are having this public meeting tonight. And I can't comment on the penalties for past bylaw contraventions.
Thank you for that, Owen. And certainly there is still an opportunity for everyone to contact the planning department. Owen did put up the information where you can get in touch with him or send a message to him. As he stipulated, we're still in the consultation phase. So there's ample opportunity for people to come forward that have concerns. So if there are no other, yes, Madam Clerk?
Sorry to interrupt. We do have another question in the chat, and I'm going to not pronounce this properly, but I'm going to try my best. From Zatin Ismail, asking if we can define the boundary of the downtown core.
Thank you, Stacy. I'll turn this over to Owen.
If you are referring to the downtown waterfront zone where short-term rentals are proposed to be permitted as of right, that extends from Point Street all the way down Main Street and encompasses those properties that abut Main Street all the way down to the town docklands. And that's where short-term rentals are proposed to be permitted. In such areas where they are not permitted in the new zoning bylaw, they can still be permitted through a zoning bylaw amendment application that would be subject to council approval.
Thank you for that. And as I said, there still is an opportunity for people to send their inquiries or questions through to the planning department. So Stacy, if there are no other hands up or questions, we will move on to our next item.
Yes, Madam Chair, I don't see, oh, Councillor Cummings.
I have Councillor Cummings, yes. This
Thank
is
you.
an opportunity for council to ask a question or clarification. Go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was a mouthful. Owen, I've heard a number of complaints from various municipalities. The Ontario government has issued a brochure to municipalities regarding STRs and the impacts on policing and bylaw. We have mentioned a demerit point system. Are we going to use that? And are we going to have teeth with that demerit system that will prevent or cancel licensing for these STRs?
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Owen?
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. That's something that we would bring forward in a future report to committee for their consideration. When we're drafting a bylaw, we would pass it through our legal consultants to make sure that it does in fact have teeth to it, and we can actually enforce these provisions that would be within the bylaw. In terms of, are we going to be implementing a demerit point system or some other sort of system to help regulate these? That's something that the project team is kind of still working out to figure out what the best means is, and certainly we'll come forward with a proposal for consideration at a future committee meeting.
Okay, it's just that we've already had some existing problems and we don't have any teeth to enforce it right now. And I think a demerit system would be a good system to work with as far as trying to regulate some of this and control it without having bylaw and police always attending these various places in town.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. I see that the clerk put her camera on. Is there something else, Stacy?
Just another comment in the chat from Carol. Just wondering if, and again, sometimes these comments come out of context because we've stopped talking about whatever the person has chatted, put in the chat. So hopefully Owen can put the two together. But the chat says, so do you mean to force people to have full-time tenants in their homes that are not detached? And she continues with, I didn't mind living with my mother here, but other tenants aren't so good. I guess just a question about the specifics of tenants in the short-term rentals.
Owen, do you have a comment on that?
Under the definition of a short-term rental that's proposed in our zoning bylaw, a short-term rental means a rental that's occupied for 28 days or less. In terms of forcing people to have full-time tenants. If you have a license, that license would be good for a certain period of time. Most municipalities, that would be 1 or 2 years. So within that time frame, if you have a license, you may operate your short-term rental unit.
Thank you, Owen. I see that Jackie and Steve have a further comment. Jackie, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're
Hi, Steve here. Thank you for everything that you're doing. We, as Jackie explained to you before, we do run an Airbnb, and we're very proud of it, and we work very hard to maintain a very high standard on it. And we do appreciate the need for licensing and to have rules. We know that there are some people who take advantage of this in a very bad way. And we would just like to invite anybody on the council to come and tour our Airbnb if you'd like, just to get an idea of what a good one looks like. I know there's a lot of talk about the few bad ones that are out there, but it might be a good idea to just become aware of what a good short-term rental looks like. Just an offer I'm putting out there.
Very good. Thank you very much for that invitation. Yes, I will stay with council for a moment. I see that Councillor Levy has her card up. Go ahead, Debbie.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. I have a lot of problems with what I'm seeing here, specifically the exclusionary zoning proposal. Why would one part of town allow them and another not? I also want to point out from an economic development point of view how incredibly important Airbnbs are. We never had a hotel, a motel in the last 80 years, and the Airbnbs are providing this amazing service of bringing people into our community, our downtown core, our restaurants, our shops. And I'd like to thank Jackie and Steve for the invite to their Airbnb, but apparently I've been there because my kids have stayed at your place. I have a very small house. When my family comes to visit, they stay at Airbnbs. And when I go to Vancouver, I stay in Airbnbs, and I have in several other countries as well. So I don't think we have to take a sledgehammer to this issue. We have 3 problem houses, and according to the folks from Champlain Road, possibly a few more. But I don't see that. I really don't see the 1 and 2 bedroom apartments as in a home with the owners living there as a problem, like Rita Jean's lovely little place and Jackie and Steve's and all these places that are providing a huge boost to our community. I think we deal with the 4+ bedrooms, the 7-8 cars, the 12, 20-year-olds that are yahooing all night and disrupting the neighborhood. But I just don't see that we need to, a license is fine. I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. Few rules and regs, fine. But I really think that the issue are the large places, the party houses. I've been to all of the ones that have been the subject of many, many complaints. And wow, I wouldn't want to live near them. But anyway, that's my 2 cents worth, maybe 4 cents worth. But I just wanted to. Okay.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Levy. I will remind council that we will have many opportunities to discuss this further. So I do see that Councillor Vadabonker has his hand up. Councillor, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. I don't really have a question. I have a comment though, and that has to do with the distinction between short-term rental and a bed and breakfast. There seems to be lots of confusion about the two, and I think it's important going forward that we make it clear what the distinction is between a bed and breakfast and a short-term rental. And some of the examples that have been mentioned in conversation, in my mind, more fit the definition of a bed and breakfast where the owner lives on the premises and rents out, 2 or 3 rooms in their residence. So just going forward with that, and I'm interested to hear the public's comments on the proposed licensing regime. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vadabonker, and certainly that's a very valid point, making a distinction between those two. I do see that Ms. Bishop has her hand up again, so I will go to you, Rita. And one last question to Jackie and Steve, and then I think we'll move on. Rita, go ahead.
My question is with regards to the next meeting in April. Currently, the proposal of having the Airbnb district defined, my suite would be a legal non-conforming. However, if I understood your slideshow at the beginning, it stated that someone would come to inspect it. And I encourage that, of course, but I just wanted to know, would that be in the next timeline in April where, I could go in ahead of time and book an appointment to have somebody come and qualify that it is going to be grandfathered in, so I would qualify for the licensing, because I'm sure there are some people that are grandfathered in, but then the other parts of the criteria may not meet the standard.
Thank you very much for the question, Rita. Owen, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I can just clarify on our timing regarding this matter. So should staff receive direction from council to go ahead and draft a licensing bylaw, that would be presented at the next meeting in April. That would be April 13th. At that meeting, the draft bylaw would be presented. We'd still receive feedback from council in terms of tweaks we can make to the bylaw. Should the bylaw be in a form that council is comfortable with, it would be brought to the following meeting in May for final approval. And it's at that time that the licensing bylaw would come into full force and effect. And people that operate short-term rental units would be required to obtain a license. In terms of the transition from the town not really speaking to short-term rentals and not necessarily regulating them through a formal bylaw, to now having these new regulations both in our zoning bylaw and through licensing, there will be some sort of transition period that staff and the project team are still looking into. So in terms of a timeline for that, I can't quite advise yet, but that's something we would bring forward at our next report to committee in April.
Okay, thank you, Owen. Jackie and Steve, last comment to you. Your hand was up. Go ahead.
Sorry, we're not meaning to monopolize things here.
Thank you, Anita. Just wanted to make a comment. There's just a few things that just thinking about with what people are speaking about. I know that I heard the number 8 as a maximum mentioned. That's been discussed and put out there. I might suggest that the maximum should be 6. We found in our experience that we've learned how to vet people who come to our Airbnb, and we can say we've had 2 unfortunate experiences with a younger group, and that's what we watch out for now, and we look to see what the numbers are before we approve somebody. And we think that 8 is probably a little high, but we even carefully look at when 6 people apply to come to our Airbnb, because we know that just like a hotel will not rent a room to 8 people. They probably won't rent one to 6 people. So the higher the number, the more chance there is of somebody that's trying to organize a group that may not want to abide by local rules in that kind of situation. Just some food for thought there. I think the number 8 should maybe be looked at being reduced to 6. And also, I'd like to mention that the model that we've used, we've created a duplex, a legal conforming duplex through the planning department, where everything is under fire safety rating and all that kind of stuff. So we did that with the intent of keeping housing available in Penetangue as well. So we have a basement apartment that is rented out to a permanent tenant in the same complex. And we think that that's a good model for moving forward for the town.
Very good. Thank you for those comments, Steve. As I said, I think we've had good discussion and there's much more discussion to be had. Certainly for the people that are on Zoom, if you'd like to comment further, please do so and send your inquiries, questions, comments through to our planner, Owen Taylor, and I'm sure that Owen will get back to you and bring those concerns forward to the working group before we come back to council. Okay, I think council, we've had good, oh, yes, Deputy, yes, Stacy, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'm so sorry. We do have just one last item in the chat that I'll read aloud for the record, and then I think we probably can move on. Like you said,
Okay.
the public still has lots of opportunity to provide feedback through our Connect Penetanguishene website survey and by contacting our planning department. So the last chat we see here is from Dawn Marie agreeing with Councillor Levy, saying we are missing our historic sites as pointed out. There's no hotel in Penetanguishene. As a family of 5 in her house, she says our current proposal would restrict my family going with my sibling, family of 4, to enjoy an Airbnb. Airbnb is a very well-ran business and most owners are very responsible hosts. I think that's the last comment in the chat. And
yes. Thank you for that, Stacey. And I'm sure that the planning department will are aware of what's in the chat and will be commenting if so needed. Okay, council, we will move on to our second item. It's a public meeting. There is a public meeting tonight under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment to the town zoning bylaw 2000-02. The municipal address is 19 and 21 Jury Drive. To council, the purpose of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments. The purpose of this public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the application, nor is it intended to be a question and answer session. There is an opportunity under matters for consideration to ask questions. And for our public, this is your opportunity to speak, and we encourage you to do so. In accordance with the Planning Act, if a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions before the bylaw is passed or an approval given, you will not be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and you may not be added as a party to a hearing on an appeal to the OLT unless, in the opinion of the OLT, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I would ask our planner to introduce the application, confirm the notification, etc. Mr. Taylor, if you would like to give us a brief introduction on the application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for zoning bylaw amendment to remove the holding symbol from 2 properties being 19 and 21 Jury Drive. Notice was provided last week in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act to property owners within 120 meters of the property. The purpose of the holding symbol was a result of a severance application in 2012 where a holding symbol was applied to the lands along with another zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the lands to a residential zone. And the holding symbol was to be applied until such time as the conditions of approval for the original consent and associated agreements have been entered into. The conditions of approval have since been met, and the property owner entered into a consent agreement with the town in 2013. They are now in a position to obtain a building permit for the property. As a result, they've applied to lift the holding symbol in order to be able to obtain a building permit. I'm happy to answer any questions from council or the public.
Thank you very much, Owen. I would now go to the public. And are there people present that would like to ask a question or ask for clarification? Please state your name for the record. And I would ask that you turn your cameras on. I don't see any, but I'm not looking at the full screen. Stacy, is there anyone?
I'm not seeing any cameras on, any hands up, or any microphones turning off, as well as nothing in the chat, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I will give council an opportunity to ask for clarification. I don't see council. So with no further comments, I thank everyone for their attendance and participation, and we will be considering this issue a little later in our meeting. Thank you. So we will now go on to our deputations and presentations. And our first presentation is from Father Michael Knox, who is Director of Martyr Shrine. He is here to give us an update on what's happening at the Martyr Shrine in 2022. Good evening, Father.
Good evening, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's such a privilege to be here with all of you, and I hope that everyone is in good health. Thank you so much for all the work that you've been doing, and you've all certainly been in our prayers along with all the councils in the region during COVID-19. If I may, I wanted to share just for a few minutes some of what's been happening at Martyr Shrine and to make a few announcements regarding our opening. I have to say, just for the last hour, watching municipal life come to the fore with all the questions and interaction is fascinating. And it brings me back to something we're praying a lot about in our work with the homeless around affordable living. I don't know why that came to my mind amidst the conversations that were just occurring. Anyway, at Martyr Shrine, as you may be aware, councillors, the shrine has been closed for the past 2 years. And this was directly related to the policies for health and safety and the protocols around our time of pandemic, where we were unable to host large groups of people and indeed have the church open to the public on several occasions. And as a national shrine, and as the largest economic generating tourism force in Simcoe County, I know that people were very concerned about that, but also perhaps more importantly, it was sort of difficult for us not to be able to be present to people in need when perhaps those needs have been escalated by isolation and struggles with work and society and our ability to communicate and be present to one another. Unfortunately, with that decision that was made, it meant the laying off of most of our permanent staff here in this institution, and also not the hiring of the normal levels of seasonal staff that we would to help contribute to employment in the region as well. From that, it meant, as I've shared with other councillors in other towns and cities, of late, it meant some creative care for our 300 acres of land and the 14 buildings and the 27 gardens and 38 monuments and the church structure and the Jesuit residence and so on. which basically became maintained by 2 people, or maybe 2.5 people, rather than the normal 7 to 10 people that would be caring for it. It also meant that we had to be creative in the way we could serve other people in the community. As you may be aware, there's a permanent community of Jesuit priests here, and all of us are involved in various high school, grade school, junior school, parishes, mental health center, military bases, and so on, helping with chaplaincy and pastoral care when the shrine is normally closed in the season. And we were unable to do that, unfortunately. But we had to find creative ways to be present to people. And so you may have noticed we had a 1-800 number available where 8 hours a day it was manned by a Jesuit priest for spiritual conversation. Anyone could call in and seek support. And we had some very powerful moments of conversation with a lot of people who were struggling, particularly at the height of COVID-19. We were also able to put our mass online and had almost 4,000 viewers every week at its peak, while also offering some of the things that we would if the shrine was open. Priests were on standby to light candles on the grounds for people who wrote in with intentions, and so on. So we tried to be creative also with online retreats. One of our retreats had over, I think, 5,000 participants for an 8-day retreat that we had online last year. These are all ways we've tried to continue to reach out in our deep care for your community and all of the communities in this region, and indeed across the province, and the contact we have with different people across the country. Moving forward, the decision was made, and it's very exciting that we're, at least for us, that we're opening this coming May, and we'll be fully opening. Our opening weekend is always the first Saturday in May, which I believe this year is the 9th of May. And with the lessening of restrictions and then those coming up after the 22nd of March, we're able to proceed with hiring. And during this time, I guess, where we had less ad extra laborers, we had more time to work on our strategic planning moving forward. And thanks to the generosity of a lot of benefaction that has come in over the last 2 years online and through the mail, as well as the prayers of people, we're able to be prepared now to open. We have the resources we need to expand some of the experiences that people have on the site. We have a moral and personal desire to open our doors wider, and some of our initiatives include care, of course, for our Indigenous sisters and brothers, of whom we're offering free access from now on to the site, as I've announced before. Also, more spaces of prayer for people who may not feel comfortable in large groups yet. Individual prayer walking experiences that are written up, and the gardens and so on being adjusted to allow for that personal time. Also, we're expanding our food services, hopefully in some way opening that up again. It's a challenge somehow, and also our gift shop and other services. So we hope to be fully open, and we plan on welcoming all of you on the night. And we're just so very grateful for all of the support that we've received from people literally in Penetanguishene. I can name names, but certainly across the country. And we just wanted to share our thanks with you and just give you an update and let you know that we're happy to be opening. So that's really all I wanted to share. If anyone has any questions, any of the councillors through Madam Deputy Mayor, I'm happy to take them in the moment I might have left.
Thank you very much, Father. And yes, are there questions from members of council? Not seeing hands up, Father, but we certainly are very pleased to see that the shrine will be opening its doors this year. It is definitely an economic and tourism driver for all of our areas. So we wish you all the best in 2022, and certainly hope to get an opportunity to come out for a visit. So
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And of course, all of you are welcome as every year for our community gardens, of which Penetangwisheen for the last 4 years has sponsored in front of the church. And that's an invitation not only to Mr. Mayor and to Madam Deputy Mayor, but to all councillors, along with those from Midland, Tiny and Tay and so on, to come together on that day. And we'll make sure you know when that is. You're all very welcome.
Very good, Father. Thank you once again. Good evening.
Thank you. Bless you now.
Thank you. We have a second deputation this evening from the president of our curling club, Mr. Stu Spires. So Stu, if you'd like to come on, you have the next 10 minutes. I believe they have a presentation to make to us. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Oh,
Can you
good
hear me?
evening. Welcome. The floor is yours, Stu. You can go ahead with your presentation.
I'm trying.
Oh, okay. We'll be patient.
I think we're there now. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. We are here tonight because the Team Howard Community Center that was built by community volunteers 50 years ago and is today a town-owned asset managed by volunteers urgently requires capital repairs and equipment to remain viable. We believe council will support the Team Howard Community Center because the community center aligns with the town's vision, mission, and goals. The town's vision includes active living and opportunity for residents. Town mission includes sustainable infrastructure.
So sorry to interrupt, Stu. I'm so sorry, but I know you have a presentation and it's not showing on the screen. So I know you've worked very hard on a presentation and I don't want you to miss that opportunity.
Yeah, what's on the screen is the pictures, and that's our intent.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure because I knew you had a PowerPoint presentation planned as well. Is that right?
Yeah, this is it, the pictures.
Okay, but no one can see the pictures at anything. We can just see you and the rest of council. That's why I was a little concerned. No, it's totally fine. We just realized that as you continued talking that perhaps your presentation wasn't sharing as you expected. So if you do share screen, we can get you started again.
We can share screen.
It did come up at the very beginning.
Just hit your share content, hit the screen once, and then there's a green arrow at the bottom that says share content.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if Mr. Spires and his company continue to struggle, I'm sure that staff can pull up the version that's in our agenda.
We do have, I know Stu's probably going to speak to that because he did speak to me in detail about this presentation. We do have a very basic version of the presentation that he worked on, but the presentation does include a lot of pictures and things that he was really hoping to share. So certainly worst case, we definitely have that pared down presentation that's just the words. And I'll allow Mr. Spires to advise if that's how we should continue.
Oh,
Here it is.
Are you seeing the screen now?
yes, we are.
Okay, so I'll just start with this slide now. We believe council will support the Team Howard Community Center because the community center aligns with the town's vision, mission, and goals. The town's vision includes active living and opportunity for residents. The town mission includes sustainable infrastructure, and the town's strategic plan goals include that the town will enjoy modern, accessible recreation, upgrade its indoor facilities, and support active lifestyles. Importantly, the community supports the Team Howard Community Center as demonstrated by 300 plus letters of support that we've received, community emails to councilors, and community participation in tonight's deputation. Feedback has been received that investing in the community center will only benefit 200 curlers. However, we believe that the benefits to the community are much more significant. The Team Howard Community Center is a friendly social environment that welcomes everyone. It supports physical and mental health. It attracts retirees to Penetanguishene. It hosts charities, town events, and life event celebration of residents. And it's the host of our day camp. Additionally, Little Rock's juniors, adults, and world champions are active at the center. It provides significant positive recognition for the town of Penetanguishene as being a positive economic impact. We have 50 plus local businesses that advertise, sponsor events. We host bonspiels and other curling competition, example, the Scotties, and many more opportunities to do more events like that. We are asking town council to support the Team Howard Community Center with $150,000 capital investment to get us back up and functioning for 2022 and to extend the facility's life. This represents a 1.5-year payback based on an operational expense for this facility of $100,000. The life extension is estimated at 15 to 20 years and is therefore an outstanding bridge to a new recreational facility in the future. The need here is urgent as we need dollars for April 30th because the header system quote will increase by approximately 25% after April. Prior to leaving for Lethbridge, Alberta to represent Ontario and the Penetang Curling Club at the 2022 Brier, Glenn Howard recorded the following video to express his support for the Team Howard Community Center.
Hi, Glenn Howard here. So I'm here to talk about the Team Howard Community Center, formerly known as the Penetanguishene Curling Club. You know, it was a community volunteer operation 50 years ago, built and run by the community, built and run by the volunteers. It's a club that has hosted umpteen provincial championships. It brings in Little Rockers. It hosts town events. We do jitneys. It does many rentals. It has become an absolute asset, I feel, for the town of Penetanguishene. And I can truly tell you it has one of the best reputations in the province and more so even in the country. I've been around the curling clubs all over the country, and they talk about the Pentatang Machine Curling Club. It is really legitimately countrywide known. I have also get a lot of people say to me, how cool is it to have your name and your picture on the side of a building? And I don't take that lightly. I'm incredibly proud to have my picture on the outside of the building and obviously have my family name. I've been living in Pentatang and Tiny for over 30 years. I've been to pretty close to 40 provincial championships. I've won this baby 19 times, as recently just as last week, and I'm going to be going to my 19th prior. Majority of those, we represented the Pentatang Machine Curling Club, and more, again, now known as the Team Howard Community Center. And it was very, very proud every year to be able to say that. There's been hundreds of thousands of hours of practice, thousands of hours of games played on this very sheets out here in the club. It's something that's very, very special to me, this curling club. It would be an absolute shame to see it go to waste, to not be vibrant like it always is. It's a club that's near and dear to my heart. You can probably tell with the passion in my voice. I'm a big fan of this club, and I'm very, very honored to have my name and my picture on the outside. And I think now is the time where we have to make this into a winning asset. It's a club that's very viable and very vibrant, and I feel that now's the time where the township, I would love to see continue. And I'm asking, actually no, I'm pleading with the town to come up with the funds to help us get to the levels that we need to make this a viable club again. And on that note, I hope you can come through for us. Thank you very much.
So that concludes our presentation. I think I got pretty close to the 10 minutes despite all the technical difficulties. And we've taken the liberty here of preparing a motion that, that could address our urgent need here to get it moving quickly.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Stu. If we could take this motion down. I'm not sure that council is prepared to entertain a motion this evening. I would certainly suggest that perhaps staff would prepare a report for us with more information. And we understand that there is an urgency, so that would come back to us at our next meeting. And if we needed to have a special meeting, I'm sure we could entertain that. I will now give council members an opportunity to ask questions if they wish at this time. I see no questions, but as I said, certainly I would suggest that when we get to the proper spot in our agenda to have this as a referral item so that it can be dealt with by staff and get back to council as quickly as possible. I see Councillor Vatabanker's hand up and Councillor Levy. Councillor Vatabanker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Stu, a great presentation. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. You look good on the CTV Barrie channel last night in the curling club there, speaking about this. So well done. What efforts have the club done to seek any government grants or whatnot to assist with these repairs and rehabilitation? I didn't hear that mentioned in your presentation. Thank you.
Councillor, excellent question. We have a Trillium grant that's in process. It was based on some quotes back in the fall. Our issue is that we're not certain when we're going to find out about Trillium grant and whether we'll be able to get the work done in time. So we're attempting to follow up, and all we can get is that it's under review. So we're hoping to get some funds to help out there. Absolutely. The club has also embarked on a number of fundraising activities with some minor success. And we certainly recognize that this is a big chunk of money, but it's a lot less than $10 million estimate for a new curling club. and will last quite a while. And so we think you look over the 10, 15 years that it would work, it's like $10,000 a year.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Vatabankar? You're all set? Councillor Levy, you had
sorry.
Oh, you are, okay.
It just took me a second to turn my microphone on. Stu, follow-up question, and I appreciate you breaking down the estimates for the header repairs, the dehumidification repair, and the heater repair. The quote that expires, what does that pertain to? Which component?
That's the header system.
Okay, thank you.
It's got an expiry, and I've been pre-warned that May 1st, their labor rates go up by about 25 to impact the quote by about 25% increase. It's important to note that the other quotes are also from the fall, and the 150,000 has some contingency in it so that we aren't underestimating.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Levy, you had a question?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm concerned about the timelines here. Perhaps we could ask the clerk to tell us when it can come back and if we can accommodate the curling club. If we do give approval, what kind of timelines we're looking at.
Thank you for the question, Stacey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll let our CIO respond to that question.
Thank you, Mr. CIO.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Councillor Levy. Certainly an option that council could consider is through the referral items section is to ask staff to return with a staff report. The intention, and certainly staff would be prepared to do so at our next regular meeting, which is April 13th. Should council wish to entertain a subsequent special meeting so that the curling club has a decision in advance of the end of April, certainly that could be accommodated as well. I would also suggest that certainly, usual practice would be to come to committee of the whole first and then subsequently council, which would essentially be a 2-month process. I would suggest that given the urgency and in the efforts to work with the curling club, I would suggest that staff could return to the council meeting on April 13th and bypass the usual committee of the whole process. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Levy.
Oh, you're on mute, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. That does answer my question. And I think one way or the other, whether we approve or don't approve, we have to get this. I'm assuming, and Madam Deputy Mayor, please permit me a little leeway here, that the staff report would show us where we could get the money, where the funding could possibly come from. I would just like to know where we can get the money and how quickly we could deal with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I'm sure the report will point out all of those things. I would certainly hope so as well. Further comment or questions? Yes, Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just as a council rep to the Penetang Curling Club, I must share with council that Stu and his team have been doing everything they can to try and rectify and find answers to these problems. The club has spent over, well, pretty close to 200,000 in the last couple of years, and we still haven't come up with a solution for the problem that exists today. So I think it's crucial that the town be aware that the curling club has done everything they can, and now they need our support. And I think as a community center, I think we owe it to them to help out.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Councillor Vatabankar, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think I think Councillor Levy raises a good question, and I just wanted to point out that in our next meeting at Committee of the Whole under Finance and General Government, there's a report from our treasurer with respect to the allocation of money to various projects and programs. And certainly when we get to that point in the Committee of the Whole agenda, I think when we look at this request, I think that's something worthy of consideration. I say that just to set the money aside. Obviously, I think a staff report is very important, but if we can look to consider at least giving an indication to the curling club that this is the direction we want to go in, subject to staff and staff's comments with respect to the work that has to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vatabankar. Are you referring to an item that's coming forward later this evening?
That's correct, in the Committee of the Whole agenda under Finance.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Klug?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm curious, I imagine the actual quote has been forwarded to staff to confirm that it's been provided by a licensed mechanical engineer. But if not, this is perhaps for our CAO. I'm trying to figure out how this matter works with our procurement bylaw, given that it is a town asset, and whether we need to go to tender with it. How does that all fit together?
Thank you, Councillor Klug. Mr. CAO?
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you to Councillor Klug. It's a bit of a unique circumstance. And certainly, I think, when staff returns with the staff report, that will certainly be something that we incorporate into the staff report. We will ensure that council has all the options and also speaks to the procurement specifics. What I would suggest and offer council at this point, without getting into a ton of detail because the staff report hasn't been authored yet, but what I would suggest is the curling club did reach out to the town several weeks ago after essentially requiring some assistance with some equipment repairs. We did work very closely with the curling club and the board and put them in touch with our current provider of our refrigeration system at the arena. The provider is called Simco. So I would suggest that, I'm not sure that it needs to go through a full procurement process. Certainly the town has on retainer for our own facility that we're responsible for with respect to the refrigeration components. We have our own provider on retainer and that we utilize annually. So I would suggest that certainly the curling club could leverage that, and they have kind of their own rules of procurement, if I can say that they would utilize. Should council wish to fund this, under the town's auspice, then again, I would suggest there would be no problem utilizing our provider as we currently have an agreement with them for refrigeration services at the arena. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Klug.
Thank you, Mr. CIO. Councillor Klug, does that answer your question?
I think so. I think the staff report will probably speak to whether there are possibilities for any other estimates, or there's just a sole source for this type of work. I'd be curious to see if there's a better cost out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Further comments or questions by members of council? Not seeing any. Certainly, I would like to thank you, Stu, for coming forward. It's a very important issue, that's for sure. And I want to acknowledge all the letters that have been forwarded to council indicating support to move forward with this. So we look forward to a staff report and further discussion. So thank you very much for coming forward this evening. And as I said, there's certainly more discussion to come.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There is one question on the phone. If you could identify yourself, please. the hand was taken down, so we will move on to other parts of our agenda. Okay, thank you, Council. We will move on to number 9, which is minutes from our meetings. That the following minutes of council minutes be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Council, February 9th, 2022, Special Council, February 9th, 2022, Special Council, February 23rd, 2022. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. We have no consent agenda. We do have matters for consideration. And the first under 11A is background to our public meeting, short-term rental licensing, PL 2022-13, that staff prepare a draft licensing bylaw for short-term rentals, and that staff be directed to prepare a report for a future committee of the whole meeting to address comments received at the public meeting and through other public consultations. Could I have a mover on this item? Moved by Councillor Mayat, seconded by Councillor Vadabancourt. Is there further discussion before I call for the vote? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you, Council. B is the zoning bylaw amendment, removal of the H symbol for 21 and 19 Jury Drive, PL 2022-14, that the zoning bylaw amendment to remove the holding H symbol for the properties municipally known as 21 and 19 Jury Drive be approved. I have a mover. Moved by Councillor LaRose and seconded by Councillor Cummings. Is there further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. The next one is the Harborpoint Subdivision Phase 3 Security Correction EMG 2022-06. That the security being held for Phase 3 of the Harborpoint development be reduced from $786,790.01 to $616,898.13 in accordance with the subdivision agreement. Could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor Klug. Is there further discussion on this particular item? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. Our number D is County of Simcoe Fire Service Review, FES 2022-02. That staff be directed to submit the town's response to the County of Simcoe related to the County Fire Review recommendations 1 to 10 as presented. If I have a mover and a seconder for this item, and then I'm not so sure that our fire chief wants to speak to this. Moved by Councillor Cummings and seconded by Councillor LaRose. Thank you. Fire Chief Paul Ryan, did you want to speak to this issue?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council. So as you're aware, there was a county review that was undertaken, and a number of municipal services were included in that review, and fire happened to be one of them. The county went out for a RFP. Pomax consulting firm won the fire one. They came back with 10 recommendations. In the report, it talks about the recommendations. The report that Pomax did reference the North Simcoe Fire Services and some of the concepts that were already in place that could be looked at an expanded role. Certainly, I think within North Simcoe, there's an opportunity for the fire services, if given the right direction from the CAOs and our respective councils, that there are some additional items that we can continue to look at and enhance for certainly more efficiencies and cost effectiveness going forward. So the first one it talked about was the shared fire chief, and that so certainly that has gone on now for originally was supposed to be for 15 months. Now it's going into its 7th year that we've shared the executive assistant for Midland with Penetang Fire and myself with the Town of Midland Fire Department. So I think as we go forward, there's an opportunity, as the report talks about, that there could be a more integration of the management structure between the two departments. That would give us a better opportunity to have, as an example, a duty officer once every 3 weeks. Somebody would be on call. Would give you each municipality a acting CMC to monitor weather situations and potential threats as we go forward. And I think that model certainly works, has a better concept to work between the two urban centers because our setup in that is similar and moving forward. And I guess I could say that the shared chief has worked excellent for both municipalities, but ultimately that would be a decision for council and the CAOs to discuss. But I think that certainly both those departments have moved forward in that shared role. The wheels didn't come off as per se. The second one was shared recruitment, intake, selection, training, and equipment. So in North Simcoe, we've done that for over 20 years now. Certainly within the last 12 years, our recruit program that was originated in the township of Tiny when I was there, and then was brought to Penetang when I came, and then adopted by the 4. We actually now partner with Southwest Fire Academy out of Wabashine. They're a provincially recognized private college that offers some courses. They now run our recruit training for us. And when our recruits are coming out, they're becoming certified under NFPA Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 and hazmat awareness and operations. So the level of recruits coming out now are higher, but we've been doing this for a long time. And over the last number of 20 some years, we sit down and we try to look at what we can jointly purchase and try and align our capital budgets for cost savings and things like that. So in the past, we've certainly seen those results here in Penetang when we bought bunker gear, when we bought hose, and in particular last year when council approved the breathing apparatus replacement project, we saved significant dollars for our water department and our fire department when we were able to work with some fire departments from Niagara region on that. So that's a great program that we had for a long time, and that can continue to grow and help us save some additional costs and for greater efficiencies. Shared public education and prevention resources. We've done that for a long time as well. Obviously, COVID has restricted some of that, but we have shared our resources and participate together. We have one common message to get to all of our residents in North Simcoe, so this has worked out very well. The consolidation of fire services, it may not be a lot of direct impact or savings or efficiencies in that, but I think as we go forward, I think certainly the North Simcoe review spoke about this, the county review did speak about this, but I think it would require a further analysis to see if the consolidation works. I'm not so sure that it works, but I think certainly between the two urban centers, there's an opportunity for some more integration that will provide, say, service enhancement on the Penetang side, and then ultimately maybe some cost savings on Midland side a little bit, but that could be looked at if that was the wish of councils as we move forward. Training centers. So it talked about looking at training centers, and council will remember that the Ontario government closed the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst. We have an opportunity now with Southwest Fire out of Wabashine. They moved from the Delhide area up to Wabashine. We have an opportunity to partner or come to an agreement, and council has allocated $25,000 for a North Simcoe training center, and so did Midlands Council. So the treasurers have been asked to carry that money forward while we still try and work out the particulars in relation to how we would do that. But there's an opportunity to now to go to Wabashine and send greater resources on an annual basis to that school and training center than we would ever have at the college. So I think there's a greater opportunity there to get more enhanced training for our firefighters as we move forward. Number 6 was to conduct a robust needs analysis when building new fire stations and that. Well, I'm very thankful that council built a new fire station hard to believe 12 years ago when we moved into the new fire hall station already. But that station was designed and built to meet the needs of the municipality well out into several years out into the future. So I don't suspect that there would be any merit in us looking at that with the group. Consider contracting services from a neighboring community. This was first raised back, I think, in 2014 or 2015 when the Township of Tiny suggested this. I think certainly where our station is located and our current staffing levels, we service the residents of Penetanguishene very well. I don't see any benefit in picking Tiny Station 3 as an example to come back in onto the Champlain side. When most of their firefighters work in the town of Midland or town of Penetanguishene, they would drive through those two municipalities to get to their municipality, only to drive back into the town of Penetanguishene. So I don't see any issues there, and I don't see any benefits or enhancements for us at this time to send the quickest or closest station. And obviously, as council aware, fire apparatus aren't out driving the streets on patrol like the Ontario Provincial Police are. Therefore, it wouldn't be of any benefit that way as well. Number 9 was obtaining outcome data. So this is an interesting one. Certainly right across the board in the fire services, everybody is collecting data in a different fashion. Some are collecting different information than each other. And POMAX did indicate that there could be a greater resource in this going forward in the county. Well, unfortunately, there's not one program that is a one size fits all, unfortunately, right now in fire. However, going forward, I think there is an opportunity that we can either better use our current records management systems in order to obtain different additional data. Because when POMAX asked, I can guarantee you that out of the 16 member municipalities involved in that study, probably all 16 of us were collecting some information similar, but yet different, and some weren't collecting some at all. So I think there's a greater opportunity. Down the road, though, there certainly could be an opportunity at the county level to take that over and look at dealing with those types of records management for us. Because as we know, going forward, as the world becomes more data driven, there'll be more requirement for needs analysis on statistics and things like that. And now, instead of searching in multiple places, there may be in the future an opportunity for us to look at that when we go down the road in the future. The last one was to form a municipal and county committee to further explore the recommendations. So we would support that. I think that's a great idea. Just because you hire a consultant and says, here's 10 recommendations, if we don't really start peeling back the layers of the onions or the recommendations to dig deeper, then it really truly becomes harder to recommend to all our councils exactly what we need to go forward with. So I think there is an opportunity, certainly, if the town of Penetanguishene was asked to sit on that committee, either like at the CAO level or the fire chief level, we would probably be willing to entertain that so that we could get our input at the table as well as we move forward with that. So basically, that kind of sums up. That's the Cole's version of the report, Deputy Mayor. This report was discussed with Midlands Fire Administration as well, the deputy chiefs and that, so that there was kind of that common thread as we move forward. Certainly, POMAX indicated that if some of the reviews were done, that when it came to operational budgeting, there could be a $400,000 savings. I'm not so sure that's very accurate. We would all have to agree to some of those items, but they certainly talked about capital savings could be up to $20 million by 2031. I think there is some opportunity, certainly, and I'll use the North Simcoe example, and I believe this has been discussed with the CAOs. Procurement is an opportunity. And certainly within the fire service, we look at bunker gear as an example. Well, that doesn't mean if our bunker gear is in 2025 and the other 3 are going in 2024, that we couldn't adjust our schedule to be in line with them and align our specifications and things like that. So I think there is an opportunity, certainly within North Simcoe to fire service, to finite that a little bit deeper when we go. And I think that's just the Cole's version of it, unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yes, it was a very good report. A lot of neat stuff in the report, and I agree with a lot of it. Are there questions from members of council? I don't see any questions, Paul, so that's an indication your report was thorough. And we will move on and see what happens. So I do have a mover and a seconder. We've had the report. No questions. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Great, thank you. Our next item is a verbal update from Chief Administrative Officer re COVID-19 municipal impacts, and that the verbal update from the Chief Administrative Officer will receive for information. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I've been doing every month for council as well as the community, this update I'm going to provide is for the last essentially 30 days. The last update I provided council was on February the 9th. Since then, on March 1st, the province eased several public health measures. They lifted capacity limits in indoor public settings. They lifted proof of vaccination requirements. As well at that time, they indicated that masking requirements would remain in place. They just recently today on March the 9th, Dr. Kieran Moore did announce that the mask mandate would be removed in Ontario, save and except for some high-risk settings, transit and healthcare in particular. Nothing official has been received, but certainly it's been very clear that Dr. Kieran Moore has indicated it's a shift from a mandate to a personal choice. That's the provincial update. With respect to our local public health update, a couple things to note. A little less than a week ago, Dr. Gardner issued an update to his recommendations with respect to workplace vaccination policies. Ultimately, he continues to recommend a vaccination policy remain in place for the protection of employees as well as the public. He also provided some guidance at the end of February with respect to municipal council meetings, which again, I believe council should have received through the council information package. With respect to the town update, a couple things to note as a result of the provincial guidelines. The museum and the arena have lifted the proof of vaccination requirement as of February 28th, so a week ago this past Monday. All of our staff are back working in the office off of our teams model or our cohorts model, with the exception of some specialized circumstances which we would continue to entertain moving forward. The last thing I would note is our administration facilities are open 8:30 to 4:30, and there are no appointments necessary. Although, as has been noted previously, there was never members of the public that were turned away. We are also open the full 8 hours, and we no longer have the lunch closure. With respect to the public library, their staff also returned to their regular hours. And as a result of the restrictions lifting, the facility is open back to its regular hours as well, as I understand it, pre-pandemic. They've also lifted the proof of vaccination requirement for folks coming into the library. With respect to council and committee of the whole meetings, I think I shared previously that it would be considered by the control group, and certainly several members of council have expressed a keen desire to return to council chambers. The control group with the mayor as well as deputy mayor who sit on that control group sharing their input. This meeting this evening will be the last complete virtual only meeting for council and committee of the whole. There will still be the option for members to participate virtually should they wish, but excited to say that at our April the 13th meeting, we will be back in chambers and certainly following public health guidance. The last thing I would note is the control group also had some great discussion about our organizational vaccination policy. At this time, we're going to maintain it and certainly continue to seek guidance from public health. We don't see any significant impacts or harm or risk in maintaining it, and certainly we'll reevaluate that in the coming month or so. The last update I'll provide is just with respect to some stats and data. We're continuing to see first dose, second dose, third dose numbers increasing slightly, but I would suggest, as Dr. Gardner has indicated, we're certainly starting to reach a plateau in those numbers. And the last thing I would just note is the control group continues to meet. We are moving our frequency from biweekly to monthly but certainly have the opportunity to call special meetings as the need arises. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO, for the update. And are there questions from members of council? Seeing no hands up, Mr. CAO, I guess your report has been thorough. And I'm sure I share that we look forward to meeting back in person in council chambers. I think April will be great. I think we all miss that social interaction. So looking forward to that. Thank you very much. I do need a mover and a seconder to receive this for information. So moved by Councillor Clue, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All in favor? Thank you. Our next item is planning and community development appointments. That in the absence of Andrea Betty, Chief Lees, the Chief Administrative Officer, is hereby granted authority to issue approvals and execute such instruments, documents, plans, etc., in relation to items, applications, agreements, etc., as a Director of Planning and Community Development, commencing on this date for indeterminate period. And that Owen Taylor be appointed to the Town of Penetanguishene's Committee of Adjustment as Secretary Treasurer. Is there further discussion? Mr. CAO, did you have anything to add to this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't believe I have anything to add. I think council has certainly been informed and I've briefed council on the situation. This is really an administrative request to ensure that we continue to serve and provide service excellence to our development community in the land use planning world. As I think council will know, and certainly I'm sure the public is aware, it's very important that we continue to condone and ensure mechanisms are in place to allow these developers, big or small, to continue to advance their projects in as quick of a manner as possible. So that's really what this is about. I think the only other comment I would note, Madam Chair, is, as council is aware, we have engaged the services of a consultant, a third party, to assist with some of the land use planning matters, particularly some of the larger developments. We've also done a little bit of a reorg internally and morphed our planner into a slightly different role. And certainly I'm confident that, you know, we will continue to see that service continuity with this request, as well as some of the changes we've made just from an organizational perspective. Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions should there be any.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. Are there questions from members of council? Seeing no questions, I will ask for a mover. So moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. We will move on to number 12, which is presentations and consideration of reports. Committee of the Whole report, February 9th, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to recreation and community service sections be approved. Now I have a mover, moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor Mayotte. All those in favor? Thank you. That the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to the planning and development services section be approved. Moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? Carried. That the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to transportation and environmental services section be approved. Moved by Councillor Clue and seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? Carried. That recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Moved by Councillor Vadabonker and seconded by Councillor Mayat. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. Presentations and considerations of report. Special committees, we don't have any. Notice of motions, we don't have one. But number 15, we do have a notice of motion from Councillor Jill Sanama, and this is in reference to nursing shortages within local health systems. Madam Clerk, do I read this and look for a mover and a seconder, or what?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so I just wanted to advise Council that Councillor Sanama had every intention of being here through Zoom this evening, and she's out of country, and we've learned today that connecting through Zoom on this actual meeting wouldn't allow her to connect. So she's been watching the meeting through YouTube and keeping up to date, but she's obviously unable to participate as she would like. That being said, normally notice of motion, because the councillor that moved it would then need to be there for us to continue this conversation. But I think based on the small vote that happened at the last meeting, I think council is in support of this. So I think what I'd like to suggest, Madam Deputy Mayor, is that we look for another mover and seconder just to sort of keep this on the floor and progressing forward, if that is acceptable to committee today and council today.
I have, Councillor Levy has indicated that she would move this. Do I have a seconder? A seconder by Councillor Clue. I will read the motion, and then I see Councillor Cummings, you do have a question that you would like to ask. So, moved by Councillor Levy that the Town of Penetanguishene Council call on the Ontario government to immediately repeal Bill 124 and complementary amendments to other legislation made under Bill 124 as a necessary first step to ending the nursing shortage that is compromising the ability of our health system and specifically our local hospitals in response to COVID-19 pandemic and care for those who have contracted COVID-19 and its variants. That the provincial health system be requested to review the pay levels applied for permanent nurses in relation to those employed on a temporary basis, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, requesting they share with all their member municipalities, and the North Simcoe MPPs requesting their support. So we do have a mover and a seconder, and Councillor Cummings, you did have your card up for question or discussion. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This question is actually a point of clarification. This was a notice of motion last meeting. Is this not fall under item 14, where it's a motion of which notice has been previously given and not a notice of motion?
Yes, you're absolutely right,
Yes.
Councillor Cummings. That is in the wrong area, and it should be under motions where notices has been previously given. You're absolutely right.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councillor Cummings. That will be rectified. Further comments or discussion? Yes, Councillor LaRose.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will not be supporting this. It's not whether I think the nurses should make more money or less money or have bigger raises or not. It goes to the point of this isn't our lane to be in. I wonder how we would all feel if we had a notice from different municipalities telling us what we should be paying our employees. How would it look if we went to some of our town businesses and told them what they should be doing? I'm sure the people that have brought this forward have looked at it, they've done their studies. We're only hearing the part that we hear in the bill and in the media. So just for that point and that point alone, I would feel very bad if somebody ever did this to us, and I cannot support it.
Thank you for those comments. I understand there was an announcement. I'm not sure. I don't have all the details, but I thought there was an announcement from the provincial government in reference to paying out some dollars to nurses. Does anyone have any information on that? Yes, Councillor Vadabonker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yes, the Premier and the Minister of Health made an announcement yesterday that the government will be offering a one-time payment of $5,000 to all registered nurses who have been working through the pandemic in recognition of their contribution over the last 2 years. That was the gist of the announcement.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Vadabonker. Councillor Cummings, you have further comment? You're on Zoom, Councillor Cummings.
Sorry. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Also, they announced that they would not repeal Bill 124, but they are giving these added incentives. So it's not really a raise or addressing the shortage issue. It's just the retention issue.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, the motion has been read. I do have a mover and a seconder, so I will call the vote. All those in favor? We have, okay, we got to do this over again here, guys. I have one. Who's in favor? Please put your cards up so I can see them. So we have 3. Those opposed? So the motion dies. Thank you, Council. We will go on to number 16, consideration of bylaws. And our first bylaw, and only one this evening, is bylaw 2022-15, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2002 as amended of the corporation of the town of Penetanguishene, removal of the H symbol from 19 Jury Drive and 21 Jury Drive, and that the council of the town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaw, and that bylaws be read a first time and deemed to be read a second and third time and carried. All those in favor? Oh, I guess I need a mover and a seconder, correct, Madam Clerk? Moved by Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All those in favor? Thank you. Question period from the media and public. Sarah or Stacy, do we have anyone?
We do still have members of public on the line today, but I haven't seen any questions in the chat or any hands coming up. So I assume that means we have none.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to number 18, which is announcements and inquiries. Yes, Councillor Clue.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Some news from the museum tonight. The first item is, of course, there are March break activities for children, so please register for those in advance of next week. And the second item is we are currently in the process of a March Madness competition through the Simcoe County Tourism Office. So if you go to experience.simcoe.ca and look for SUMAC or March Madness, please vote for the town of Penetanguishene. The staff has put together a very exciting video, and we are competing against other museums in the county. Voting is open until 4:30 p.m. tomorrow, March 10th. And we need all the votes that we can get so that we compete and continue on in this March Madness into the next bracket. And right now we are against the town of Collingwood, and we'd like to continue and win. So please vote for us.
Thank you, Councillor Clue, certainly. And is there a limit as to how many times one individual can vote?
Not that I have found.
Very good. Well, I did vote once. I can get back in there and do it again. Further announcements? I just have one. Yesterday, the library staged an event in reference to International Women's Day. It was an excellent event, and I just wanted to congratulate the executive director and her staff for a very excellent afternoon. Great speakers, and it was very well received. There are no further announcements or inquiries. Our confirmation bylaw, that confirmation bylaw 2022-16 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. A mover and a seconder for this. Do I need that, Stacy? I'm Councillor LaRose, Councillor Cummings, all those in favor? Carried. And we have adjournment, council. I think we'll take just 5 minutes and we'll get into our committee of the whole. Thank you. Okay, everyone, I think we're all set to start our committee of the whole. So I will call our meeting to order and look for approval of the agenda. Recommended action that the committee of the whole agenda for March 9th, 2022 be approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Cummings. All those in favor? We have, thank you, Council. We have declaration of pecuniary interest, either now or at the time the item comes forward. Presentations and delegations, we have none. Number 5 is council information package. Recommended action that council information package dated February 6, 2022 and March 2nd, 2022, having been given due consideration, be received for information. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cummings, seconded by Councillor Mayat. Are there any issues that council would like to pull? Yes, Councillor Clue.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I pull the letter from the resident on the February 16th CIP regarding the Robert Street crossing lights? We can just refer that or discuss it during TNE, I suppose, during referrals.
Oh, yes. I think that would be just fine. Thank you. Any other items that need to be pulled from the CIP? Seeing none, all those in favor? As they were presented, thank you. Section A is transportation and environmental services, and I will hand things over to Councillor Clue.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So on our consent agenda tonight, we have 2 items: the Midland Penetanguishene Transit Committee meeting minutes of September 14th, 2021, and the Ojibwe Landing Ecological and Human Health Risk Assessment Project Update. That's report ENG 2022-03. The recommended action is that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. Can we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor DeRose has moved it, and Councillor Mayat has seconded. Any comments, questions, concerns on these topics? Seeing none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving to matters for consideration, the first item is the award of the 2022 asphalt resurfacing tender, report RDS 2022-02. The recommended action is that the asphalt resurfacing tender submitted from Georgian Paving Ltd in the amount of $286,036.90, including HST, be accepted. We have a mover and a seconder for this item. Councillor Rose has moved it, and Councillor Cummings is seconded. Any comments or questions? None. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The second item is the award of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation on Chatham Street, report WW 2022-01. The recommended action is that the sanitary sewer rehabilitation on Chatham Street tender 2022-08 submitted from Aquatech Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $182,428, including HST, be approved. Is there a mover for this one? Councillor Rose and a seconder. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any questions? I see none. All in favor? Thank you, everyone. That is carried. The next item is the preventative road maintenance, Reclamate Asphalt Rejuvenator RDS 2022-05. The recommended action is that council approve the sole source unit price quotation submitted by Superior Road Maintenance for the 2022, 2023, and 2024 construction seasons as outlined in the staff report, and that staff bring forward the associated agreement and bylaw forward for council approval. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Rose has moved and Councillor Mayat has seconded. Any questions? I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the fourth item is the awarding of the surface treatment tender, RDS 2022-05 is the report. The recommended action is that the 2022-02 surface treatment tender from Duncor Enterprises Limited for a bid price of $267,313.93, including HST, be approved. A mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Rose has moved. And Councilor Matt has seconded. Any questions or concerns? I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Council, for moving through all those tenders very quickly. Moving on to our referrals. The motion is that the Transportation and Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We currently have two: the 2022 budget request for roadwork at Robert Street East and Dufferin, and the stormwater management best practices and engineering standards. I did also pull from the CIP of February 16th, the letter from the resident regarding the Robert Street crossing, specifically at Owen and Scott Streets. Looking for support to have that perhaps discussed, or a memo from staff on future action there. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, no, I would support and move that initiative. That's come before council before. So certainly would look for a report or some discussion on the item.
Thank you. Councillor Vadamokur, you also had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to support adding it to the referral list.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, you were there?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just to confirm, the title would be the Robert Street Crossing, Owen and Robert Street West. And you do have the mover and seconder to add the item. And so in terms of key deliverables would be options and just options for a crosswalk at that location, or?
Yeah, I'll look to I see Brian Murray lighting up here. I think he can also provide a bit of history. We did have this in a previous budget, I believe, and it was removed, but perhaps we can just, in light of ongoing concerns there, we can revisit that, and perhaps it's referral to the next budget. But if our director can speak to that for a moment, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I just like some clarification just regarding the deliverable on that item. You are correct in the fact that it has been brought up in previous budget processes. And I would just like to confirm the location of the crossing, because in the letter, if I bring it up, I believe it's the crossing at Robert and Dupuis to be signalized as opposed to Owen Street, but I just want to get some clarification on that. That's the location that's in question, or if both locations are being looked at, just for clarification.
Thank you. My read of the letter was the priority concern was Owen Street and Robert, and Scott Street being the secondary concern. And if perhaps we can, looking to the rest of council, a memo would be fine perhaps in the meantime, but we could also refer it to budget. I recognize budget will be coming up sooner than we think, and we can discuss what that might look like to improve the safety at Owen Street, in the very least. Councillor Cummings, you've got your card up.
I just have a question regarding this. Have we done a traffic study down in that area? Because I believe when we last addressed this issue, there wasn't a real need for that, especially a signalized one. There may have been road painting done as a crosswalk, but not signalizing.
We'll look to our director, Murray.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Cummings. We have done traffic counts in that area, but as for a specific traffic or pedestrian signal crossing warrant analysis, as per the OTM, I don't believe that analysis has been done, but it would be done as part of the budgetary review process to determine if, based on MTO or OTM requirements, if this location warrants further signalization, and that would be brought forward as a report to council or a budgetary process item, whatever the will of council is.
Thank you for that. So I'm wondering if Carrie's on the line. I actually don't know when budget's starting this year, given an election year, and how that will impact this item. But I see our CIO has put his mic on, or his video. Mr. CIO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our treasurer unfortunately isn't with us this evening, but we do have our deputy treasurer with us. But I think I can just shed a little bit of light for committee. The budget process is intended to take a similar form as it did 4 years ago, which is to start the process with this current term of council and ultimately have the new term of council give its final stamp of approval on it. So in short, we are intending, of course, with this council's blessing, to start the budget process in a similar timeframe as we would on any given year. The difference being that ultimately we would expect the new term of council after they take office to give their final stamp of approval. I hope that helps, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So looking to council, if we add it as a referral item towards the budget, is that acceptable to everyone? I see heads nodding. Councillor Vademokar, go ahead. Your hand's up.
Thank you. I think the report has to come forward before the budget process so that some direction can be given to the budget process. So I think to be considering it as along with the budget, I think that would just make it challenging from a budgetary standpoint. So that would be my comment.
Very good. Okay. So Director Public Works, do we have enough to go on for deliverables if we bring up a report back before the budget process?
Yes, Madam Chair. I believe we've got the direction and clarification we need, and in reviewing the residence letter, it does appear that the subject is the Owen and Robert / Scott Street area. So we'll proceed with that and bring forward a report to committee for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Vademokar, another?
Sorry, not to complicate things, but the crossing at Dupuy Lane, that's another area. I drive that section of Robert Street on a regular basis, and there's a number of people that cross at that location going to the dog park. That's one of our trailheads when they're heading down to the waterfront park. So I noticed a lot of people crossing there. So if we're going to be considering it, I would suggest that be added to the list, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's fair. To our director, perhaps a number of unsafe crossings on Robert Street be reviewed for options, be it signage or line painting, even to improve safety there. And Councillor Cummings, I see your card.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We already have crosswalks at Dupuy. And we also have, I believe, battery operated signal for the crossing at that point as well. But the Director of Public Works can kind of clarify that for me. But I do believe we do have the crosswalk painting there already and some form of light.
Thank you for that question. I don't believe there's a light, and we know the line painting is great 6 months of the year. However, in Canada, the other 6 months of the year, we need a little bit of help getting people safely across. So I will refer that though to our director when he comes back with a report at a future date to review that. And I think we can move on from this one. Madam Clerk, do I just need a vote? I'm not sure where we are now.
Yes, I think we have this item. We have you as the mover, Deputy Mayor Dubois as the seconder to add the item. I think our Director of Public Works has the clarity he needs in terms of key deliverables. So we just call for a mover on adding this item and then a mover and a seconder for all of them as a whole.
Okay, great. Thank you. So can we see all in favor of adding this item to the referral list? And I'm counting, I believe that is carried 3 and 4. We'll carry that. Thank you very much. And then we go back to the original items. If there are any comments or questions, seeing none, can we have a mover and seconder to carry those forward? Councillor Rose and Councillor Mayette has seconded that. All in favor of those items? That is carried. And moving on to question period from media and public. Don't believe we have anybody tonight. Wait a second, but I see none. So I will send that back to you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We're on to item number 7, Recreation Community Services, and I will hand it over to Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We won't take much of your time tonight because our spring hasn't started yet, so we're not that busy. On our consent agenda this evening, we have 3 items. The Penetang Curling Club minutes dated February 8th, Penetang Public Library minutes dated November 22nd, and the Public Library monthly report, which is dated for March 2022. Recommended action here is that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. I need a mover. Councilor Mayette, second, and Deputy Mayor. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no matters for consideration. We have no updates, Deputy Mayor, and I just don't know whether there's any questions from the media or public. I don't think so. However, I'll give you a second. Seeing none, that is all for us. Back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We will go on to number 8, which is Section C, Planning and Community Development Services. And I understand that the Deputy Chair of that group will be run by I've elevated you this evening, Mr. Butler. I will hand it over to you.
I'm not a PhD yet, Madam
No,
Deputy Mayor, so
I know.
still working on it. So thank you very much. Yes, so the chair is with us tonight, but she's going to be sitting in the background. I'll be speaking to the very brief Planning and Community Development Services agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, and that is the Municipal Law Enforcement Monthly Report, February 2022. Any comment on that report? Seeing none, may I have a mover for the recommended action that the following consent agenda item is having been due consideration be received for information. Municipal Bylaw Monthly Report, February 2022. Councillor Rose, a seconder. Councillor Mayette, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Matters for consideration, we have none. Referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. And we have 2 items on the referral list. Regulation and licensing options for short-term rentals. And we had some discussion on that at our council meeting a little bit earlier. And then we have the Bulio Drive road options for zoning and a road development. And that's they're both due at the end of Q1 2022. Any items to add? And I see Councillor Kluge's card. Yes, Councillor Kluge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one item up there I had requested, I'm actually looking for support to push that to our budget process, given our challenges in the staffing of planning. Right now, I don't believe it's an urgent need to deal with that one in Q1, but there is an item that I would also like to have support to add, if I might speak to it for a moment. We haven't had a discussion in some time about housing, and I'm looking to see if we can have someone from the county perhaps and come and deliver a State of the Union, as it were, about housing, specifically in North Simcoe and Penetanguishene, so we can have a picture going into the rest of 2022 knowing the number of changes we've seen in the last 2 years, I'd like to see if we can have a presentation to our council at a future date.
Thank you, Councillor Clue. So the item would be a request to the county housing staff to come and make a presentation to council on the housing situation in Penetanguishene and the North Simcoe area. I guess the key deliverable would be the presentation, and you're making the request. And when did you think that might be something that would be a good target for?
I'd imagine it would be at the county's discretion. Q1, Q2 would be ideal, given this council is going to morph into something new in the future this year. But I will leave that to the county and their scheduling.
Okay, well, maybe if you don't mind, maybe we'll put a target of Q2, which we're almost at the end of Q1, so Q2 would put it to June 30th. So maybe between now and the end of June, something could be scheduled for a presentation, and it may have to be pushed. Okay, does everybody understand what the referral is? May I have a mover to add that to the referral list? Madam Deputy Mayor, a seconder. Councillor Mayotte. So all those in favor? And it's carried. Any other items to add to the referral list? I have two that I'd like to speak to. The first item is our site plan control bylaw. Our site plan control bylaw is one of our older planning documents. As council is aware, we've just approved, or the county has just approved our official plan. We're going through the update of the zoning bylaw, which we'll be considering in April, perhaps in May, but it's moving forward. So I think the next major document that we should be reviewing is our site plan control bylaw. And it needs to be updated. I think it's timely in the sense that we've got the other two. I'd like to see it addressed. I don't think it's an urgent matter. It's just something that, from the standpoint in terms of the referrals, if we could ask that it be put on, so it would be update of the site plan control bylaw, and maybe at the end of Q3. That might be an appropriate time frame. So that's the first item that I'd like to suggest as a referral. And I see our CAO has popped up on his video, so he may have some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was gonna let you finish with your two items and then just speak to in general just the process with respect to timing and staff. Typically the process that's undergone with adding referral items is just trying to get a sense from council, or in this case committee, I should say, the sense of urgency of the items. And then staff would go away and discuss, feasibility in terms of meeting the urgency that committees indicated. And we would propose some timing based on kind of what we heard from committee. And certainly I appreciate your comments, Mr. Chair, that there isn't a sense of urgency given a couple things, but also I'm sure being factored into that is our staffing situation currently in planning and development. So I was going to let you finish your two pieces, but I appreciate you calling upon me. The takeaway for me, just to committee, is if we can get a sense of is it urgent, is it not urgent? Staff will go away and discuss how those items, which in some cases may require more resources than other referral items, say. We will come back with proposed timing, and certainly committee is welcome to fast track things, and we will adjust work plans and schedules accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that opportunity.
Thank you. And just from my perspective, it's not urgent. It's not something that I was looking. I thought we needed to put a time frame, but if Madam Clerk is happy that there's not a time frame attached, then you'll come back with a time frame at some point. Then I'm good with that. So that would be the first item. The second item, and this is something that's troubled me for a while, but it's just it's a planning matter, and forgive me because I don't get into planning matters as much anymore as perhaps I used to. So it has to do with our zoning bylaw. And it's the interpretation, and I'm not sure where it's come from, but that the Airbnbs that are already established in Penetanguishene, the 78 or so, may have a legal non-conforming right to be there. And that would imply that they are there legally today, so that they are in conformity with the zoning bylaw. Does everybody understand what I'm getting at on this one? So my read of the zoning bylaw, and again, I'm a little rusty on this stuff, is that the residential zones permit specific uses. So there's a list of uses that the residential, and it talks about those uses. So by definition, if the use is not included in that list, then it's not permitted. If you understand what I'm saying, the bylaw is written that way, and a lot of zoning bylaws are written that way. And so I just want to understand, because somewhere along the way, through our looking at our zoning bylaw and looking at Airbnbs, we have, as an organization, we've come to the conclusion that they are a permitted use. And therefore, if we go with a new zoning bylaw, that these existing 78 become legal non-conforming or grandfathered. And I'm troubled by that, because I'm not convinced in reading our zoning bylaw, the way our zoning bylaw is structured, that it's an exclusionary bylaw. It says these are the only things that are permitted. Everything else is not permitted. So I hear the comment that an Airbnb is not defined in the zoning bylaw. That's fine. Airbnb is a fairly new phenomenon, but applying that principle would mean that it's not a permitted use. As I said, I'm not an expert. So my referral item, getting to it now, thank you for your patience, is that we ask whether our development solicitor or development solicitor that, with the planning, we just get an interpretation, so that when we get into the whole issue of legal non-conforming or non-conforming, that we have an answer to that question, because I think it's very important, and we may have already got an answer. I'm just not aware of it. We've just keep tossing it out that, oh, they're permitted. The 78 that are there are already established. They're permitted use in this various residential areas, and I'm not 100% convinced. So that's my referral item. Hopefully the clerk has captured fewer words than I've just said to define that referral item, and I'll get some support for that. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Clute.
Mr. Chair, can we perhaps add that as further clarification to the existing referral on short-term rentals? There's an existing one, and that just expands on some of the questions that are surrounding the whole matter.
And I thank you, Councillor Clue. I hear what you're saying. I understood the referral to be more on the licensing part of it, as opposed to the zoning side of it. That's how I interpret it. This was more specifically with the zoning. But I see your point. Regulation could mean zoning. I think it's more of a specific issue with respect to the legal non-conforming aspect. Thanks for the suggestion, though. Mr. CAO, I see you popped up on the video.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I opted to keep my video on because I figured you may be calling upon me for the second one. So I appreciate that. Certainly, and I'll look to our clerk. Hopefully she's done her wonders and captured in a succinct way what you're looking for. I think I understand it. I'm not going to pretend to be a planning expert because I'm not, but certainly we would be happy, should committee wish, to engage a third party to get that interpretation. As you've noted, I think it's a great question and great clarity that we can certainly seek and come back to committee with. it's timely given the process that we're undergoing now, as you've noted, and certainly we will factor that in as we come back with proposed timing. Certainly, I believe, and I'm sure you would concur, more timely than the site plan control referral item that you noted. So I will ask, I don't know, I saw our clerk pop up, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if our clerk wants to capture what you've outlined.
Certainly happy to do that. So the way I have it is a development solicitor opinion on the zoning bylaw definition regarding short-term rentals related to legal non-conforming / permitted use. Does that cover it?
Yeah, it does, Madam Clerk. I think the question is a short-term rental a permitted use within the residential zones as outlined in the current zoning bylaw. And then flowing from that would be that if it is, then they've established as a legal non-conforming use. If they're not, then they're not. They're not when the new zoning bylaw gets passed, they will not be defined as a legal non-conforming use. Is that clear?
That's a lot more words, but I can't put in the actual definition. But I think staff understand based on that. You're looking for an actual review of the definition within the current zoning bylaw relating to residential zones and how short-term rentals would either be legal non-conforming, permitted use, and how they would fall. No,
sorry, too many words. Are short-term rentals permitted in the residential zoning categories currently outlined in the zoning bylaw? Are they a permitted use?
And that would be done by a development solicitor through an opinion is what, right? That's what I have. Okay.
Thank you. And Councillor Clue is asked to speak.
Well, just to provide some comfort to council, our zoning committee for the review project is meeting tomorrow, and I know this is a topic that will be discussed. I have the same questions that you do, Councillor Vadamokur, in terms of grandfathering, and I agree with you. I don't think there is any legal non-conforming short-term rentals, so it will come back. I guarantee you, because our committee members will be discussing it tomorrow, as soon as tomorrow, and it will be an ongoing discussion. And I think you can add it to the referrals list, but I've definitely heard you, and I know I have the same concerns.
Thank you. So I think we've got clarification. Mr. CAO, you have a comment? Then I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder. Thank you. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to kind of suggest what Councillor Clue mentioned. I think there's probably an opportunity to engage our planning experts that are undertaking our zoning bylaw, but ultimately at the end of the day, it may be a tandem effort in consultation with our development solicitor as well. So we'll, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, and certainly the committee, it probably will be a tandem opinion through a planning expert as well as a development solicitor, which I think makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. So any other comments on this one? Okay, may I have a mover, Councillor Cummings, and a seconder, Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. So the motion, the main motion that the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. May I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Dugo, a seconder. Councillor Cummings, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Question period from the media and the public. I don't see any, so I'm going to turn it back to you, Madam Deputy Mayor. You're on mute, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vadamokur. Move on to number 9, which is Finance and Corporate Services. And in the absence of Councillor Santama, I will turn things over to Councillor Mayat.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Item 9A, consent agenda. Recommended for action as the following consent agenda item have been given due consideration for receiving for information. The first one is the allocation municipal modernization fund update. And then we have the 2020-2021 annual water and waste write-off. And number 3 is a 2001 annual remuneration report for council, board, and committee. Can I have a mover on this? Councillor Cummings and a seconder. Councillor Rose. Do we have any discussion? Does anybody want to pull anything on it? Councillor Valle-Boncal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak to the allocation of the municipal modernization funds, and that was in relation to my earlier comment in the council meeting dealing with the repairs to the curling club. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we can pull that and open it up for discussion, I guess. Can I have a mover first to receive this for information? And then we'll pull item 9A1. So we're gonna have everybody in favor for these information package. Are we all in favor? Okay, carried, thank you. Now I guess we're gonna pull the allocation for the municipal modernization fund update. And Councillor Valle-Boncal, you want to speak on that? You're the one that has to pull it, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A very good report outlines the grant that the town received and has looked at some options and is recommending that funds be placed and spent in certain areas. All very worthy projects, but not all of the funds are to be spent, and there's some money left over. And I thought that given that the objectives of the municipal modernization program is number 4, you can see as capital investments and asset management, that the least we could do would be to set aside $150,000 pending the staff report dealing with the curling club request, so that it's just held, and then once we have the information, then we know that we have funds available to, if council so chooses, to assist. We have money available. So that was my intent. I thought that one could help the other. So that's what I was proposing, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so do we need a mover and a seconder for that, or Deputy Mayor, sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By proposing to do that, Councillor Valle-Boncal, it certainly in no way ties us to follow through with granting this ask. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Deputy Mayor. It would just be set aside pending the review of the staff report and recommendation. That's it. If you look on the page at the bottom, I think it's the last page on the report, it talks about 199,000 has not been allocated, and it's just going to be held. So it would just be a matter of saying that we've identified, we're going to hold 150 of that, and subject to council approval of whatever comes forward from staff. That's the concept, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Mayat. Okay, so we have a consent item that's been pulled and it's up for discussion. Normally with something like this, because it is just being received for information, there's no motion on the floor other than receiving it for information. So Councillor Valle-Boncal is offering a suggestion in terms of, I guess, making an amendment to sort of the suggestion of the treasurer in terms of the allocation. And I think under other circumstances, I would suggest that Councillor Vadavon-Kerr move a motion that's with direction to have council consider it. But that being said, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be having a report being added to the Finance and Corporate Services section for the Curling Club consideration of options in terms of their financial requests today. I sort of see that coming. I'm not sure if perhaps the conversation can also include this as an option as in that report as a whole in terms of funding opportunities or for them, or if Councillor Vadavon-Kerr would rather move a motion at this time directing otherwise, certainly it's absolutely his call.
Councillor Vadavon-Kerr.
Thanks for the explanation, Madam Clerk. I'm comfortable with not putting forward a motion to address this. As outlined in the report, 199,000 is going to sit in the reserve pending any other projects that come forward for council consideration in 2022. So it's there. I've made everybody aware that 199,000 is sitting there. I think it fits what's needed. And hopefully when the opportunity arises at our next meeting, we're considering this. And the question was, do we have any funding source? Here's a funding source. So Madam Clerk, I'm comfortable not moving a motion with respect to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. So I guess we're going to leave it like that. And I guess we're done with the consent agenda. So now we're going to go to the.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. We do need to just receive that report for information as a because when it does get pulled, it kind of gets removed from receiving it for information. So we need a mover and a seconder and a vote to just simply receive it for information.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I have a mover? Councillor Vadavon-Kerr and the seconder, Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Okay, and it's passed. Okay, matter for consideration, the Advisory Committee Work Plan 2022 CL 2022-02. Recommended for action that the 2022 work plan of the Community Wellbeing Committee, Museum and Heritage Committee, and the Trail Committee be approved as presented. I guess this is something that we've been working on since March of 2019. And now basically we're just giving them our consent to go ahead and I lost my minutes here. Combine everything together. So everybody read the report. First of all, can I have a mover for this? Councillor Cumming, a seconder. Councillor Clue. Do we have any discussion? Does anybody want to bring anything up, or we're happy? We read the report. We understand it. We're okay with it. Okay, all in favor? Pass. Thank you. Item number 2, request for the reduction of a large water consumption charge. The FIN-2022-07 recommended for action that the request for a reduction of a large water consumption charge be approved at the amount of $2,277.13 for a one-time only basis. If everybody read the report, this is something that I guess was looked into the water department, and they just wanted to adjust it from what you've seen in your letter, and it'd be an adjustment one time only of that amount. Okay, so can I have a mover on this? Councillor LaRose, seconder. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Anybody have any discussion? We're not worried about it. We understand the letter. We're okay there. Okay, all in favor? Pass. Thank you. The update contract salary grid recommended for action that the council approve the amendment of the contract salary grid as presented with Schedule B, the salary of the administrating policy. And I guess basically this year is we're just upgrading the schedule pay grid for the contractors that we have during the summer. But if you look at the grid itself, we're just trying to track better students or whatever contractors we have for the 3 or 6 months. And it's somebody that's been with us for 3 years under contract. You can see what their salaries going up. And if everybody was in step 3, apparently it's just a budget of an extra 23,000, but we know it's not going to be everybody that's going to be in step 3. A lot of them will be step 1, some in step 2, and a few in step 3. So, and this is what this one here is about. So can I have a mover on this? Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Vademont-Callard. Do we have any questions, any concern or anything? All in favor? Pass, thank you. Item 4, 2019-2013 Community-Based Strategy Plan Progress Report Year 2, CAO-2022-02, that the report, the CAO 2022-20-2 be received by council for information, and that council confirmed that the commitment of the 2029-2023 Community Strategy Plan as included in attachment 1 to this report, and that council provide direction to staff to proceed with a report out to the community explaining the information as included in the attachment 4. Can I have a mover for this? Okay, Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Clues. Do we have any discussion, or does anybody want to look at this, or do we have any comments on this? None? All in favor? Pass, thank you. And I guess referral for upcoming agenda, or agenda and staff, referral that the Finance and Corporation Service section endorse the following additional and an existing referral, the upcoming agenda and staff. The only one we have on there is the OPP, costing recovery, and this one here obviously is ongoing. Do we want to add anything to this? Councillor Vademont-Callard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a letter on our January 19th, 2022 CIP from Community Reach, and it pertained to, it was listed on the agenda as the year-end summary. I think each member of council was also provided a hard copy of this letter in our baskets. When I read the letter, not only did it provide a year-end summary, but it made a request for financial assistance for seniors transportation in our community. And it talked about the number of seniors and people that make use of this transit service. And that part of it was not discussed. I read the first part that gave the update. I didn't read the second part about the financial request. And so I'd respectfully ask that that letter dated January 5th from Community Reach be put on the referral list, and that with the request that staff review the request outlined in the letter and bring a report back. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vademont-Callard. So I guess you're putting a motion to add on to the referral.
That's correct. And I communicated with the clerk earlier today just to understand the procedures. So I think she has the information, so she should be able to do it. It's just more of a time frame that it might be reasonable to expect a report back. That's the only part, and I'd be happy to move it, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Cummings. I guess I'll talk to Madam Clerk. I guess you got it written down that you know what to write down for the referral.
Sorry, didn't unmute there. I believe so. The letter is included in the information package, and as far as I know, we should be able to respond in terms of options. I'd ask that the CAO provide additional comments if there's any other concerns about responding to a report for this. Because it is just funding related, I believe. Is that right, Councillor Vadvancourt? Yeah. So I think an options on funding could be provided based on the ask.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anything else we want to add to the referral? Okay, we all in favor for the referral?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just from a formality perspective, and this got by, I think, all of us, but and is the curling club request, just for formality, it might be good if committee can add that as a referral item. It probably should be under RCS, but that's not a problem if committee doesn't mind adding it under FCS, and staff will certainly stick handle it, and it will actually be an RCS report. But I would just ask committee, Mr. Chair, if they can add this as a referral item. I think staff are well aware what the key deliverable is, and staff will report back at our April council meeting with a staff report with various options.
Can we have a mover to the CEO's suggestion? Councillor Cumming, can we have a second? Okay. Do we have any more discussion on this? Or we're all in favor for that new referral to be added on? We're all in favor for that? Thank you. Then I'll have a motion to any more new referrals to be added. Okay, so I need a motion for the referral that's existing and the two added ones to our referral for the upcoming. All in favor? Thank you. Question period from the media and the public. Do we have any? No? Madam Deputy Mayor, back to you. You're on mute, Mayor.
Yep.
Deputy,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Mayotte. Thank you, Council. We've had a lot to discuss this evening. I must thank Mr. Mayor for leaving all these things on the docket for us. Anyway, thank you. We are adjourned. Yes. Yes.
We're adjourned.
Yes.
We're adjourned, so that's fine. Everyone other than council members can leave if they'd like, but we just wanted to do a quick screen